The uncertainty surrounding the future of disruptive technologies, many countries are building the capacity in the field of cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum computers, etc., to achieve information dominance, which General Zubair also referred to. This is necessary to gain superiority in decision making and is considered essential for the future of warfare. The desire to achieve information dominance is pushing the world towards information arms racing, with more resources being diverted to build and modernize national technical means that could help access information while denying the same to the others. Now, talking specifically about what impact it could have on strategic stability. Strategic stability in simple terms can be defined as absence of a major war. This is more desirable amongst nuclear weapon states, where a conventional conflict could potentially escalate to an all-out war with the possibility of nuclear use. The resultant stability at the strategic level due to the existence of nuclear weapons could also provide incentive for states to engage in a limited military conflict at the lower spectrum of warfare, which has been explained by the social scientists as stability-instability paradox. Some of the disruptive technologies that can be employed for non-kinetic warfare could also provide additional incentive for states to engage in limited warfare without risking a major escalation. Such strategies are inherently dangerous, especially amongst the nuclear-armed states. A conflict triggered by a sub-strategic offensive by using one of the enabling technologies could quickly escalate to a nuclear conflict, thus making it difficult to predict and regulate. The potential wormhole escalation resulting due to unregulated use of disruptive technologies can unfold across different domains and switch from one echelon of conflict to another. To deal with these complex threats, states will have to develop capacity for integrated deterrence across the full spectrum of threats and potential wormholes, depending upon the resources and the nature of threat matrix. Disruptive technologies could have both positive as well as negative impact on strategic stability, crisis escalation, and crisis management. If artificial intelligence and quantum sensors can reduce the time for decision making, targeting, and delivery launch time, leading to quick escalation with a greater possibility of miscalculation, this advantage of compressed time for data analysis would also be available to the other side, allowing it more time for decision making and responding with most appropriate option. Similarly, if advanced sensing and surveillance radars can help improve the accuracy of long-range delivery vehicles, it could also be used to potentially detect nuclear-capable submarines, thus making these vulnerable to adversaries' interdiction through precision long-range hypersonic and other conventional or nuclear weapons. I know my naval colleagues wouldn't like what I'm going to say. And a submarine-based second strike capability is considered advantageous only if it remains undetectable. If modern technologies are able to neutralize this advantage, states would have little incentive to invest in developing and maintaining a second strike capability that is no longer invincible and does not provide the option of an assured second strike. Now, another concept that I want to introduce, this is a relatively new concern, that's a nuclear entanglement. This can happen when one side uses or threatens to use dual capable or conventional delivery systems or employs non-kinetic means to neutralize or degrade adversaries' nuclear forces or command and control infrastructure. For instance, if a state uses a conventional hypersonic weapon or launches a cyber attack against adversaries' nuclear command and control center or early warning systems, there is a likelihood that the defender might perceive such an attack as part of adversary's decapitating first strike, thus forcing it to respond with nuclear weapons to avoid use it or lose it dilemma. To counter such a threat and as part of its deterrence by denial strategy, the defender may also consider placing its nuclear forces on a higher alert status and pre-delegate the launch authority. This would have the potential of miscalculation leading to an unauthorized use of nuclear weapons and therefore could adversely impact strategic stability. Major powers including Russia, China, and United States are developing nuclear and non-nuclear capabilities as part of their cross-domain deterrence postures that could provide multiple options to deter potential adversaries from contemplating nuclear or non-nuclear counterforce operations that could otherwise lead to uncontrolled escalation. Russia, for instance, is concerned about the prospects of a non-nuclear regional conflict escalating to a nuclear one. To ensure that NATO or US does not exploit its conventional vulnerabilities, Russia has adopted a nuclear posture that some have labeled it as escalate to de-escalate. Russia has retained the option of responding with nuclear weapons in case US or NATO forces contemplate a disarming strike using non-nuclear high-precision weapons, hypersonic boost glide weapons, or other disruptive technologies to target Russian offensive forces or its command and control infrastructure. Russia fears that NATO's conventional advantage, coupled with adequate missile defenses in the region, makes such a scenario plausible, and therefore escalating a non-nuclear conflict to a nuclear one is the most suitable response option to prevent the other side from embarking on this kind of adventurism. President Putin's statements during the ongoing Ukrainian crisis on the possibility of a nuclear use in case the US or NATO forces get directly involved in what Russia terms to be a regional conflict is a reflection of a similar thinking. China is another major power, wary of new technological developments that could impact its strategic thinking in the long run. China is the only country with an unconditional low first use nuclear policy and does not see emerging technologies contributing towards nuclear entanglement, as it struggles to maintain distinction between nuclear and non-nuclear wars. According to some Chinese experts, the hype over disruptive technologies and its impact on strategic stability could be deliberate and intended to prevent China from pursuing some of the advanced technologies for its legitimate military needs. Interestingly, China itself is developing new offensive technologies, including the anti-satellite capability. It has also tested fractional orbital bombardment system, commonly known as FOBs, to evade US fixed missile defense system. These developments are being viewed by China's adversaries as destabilizing and may encourage some of them to develop similar capabilities or consider launching a preemptive first strike against China in a future crisis to sufficiently degrade China's offensive strategic forces. Like the other two major powers, the United States is also investing in emerging technologies. Rather, it's leading in this race. It has already declared that in case of a cyber attack by its adversaries, it reserves the right to respond with nuclear weapons. This offensive posturing is as a result of cyber and nuclear entanglement is likely to complicate deterrence dynamics amongst the major powers. The US is already spearheading the global competition in disruptive technologies, which includes the capability to intervene adversaries' command and control structure. As per the recent statement by their head of Cyber Command, United States carried out probing operations against Russia from the Ukrainian territory to map adversaries' network infrastructures and identify potential vulnerabilities. The US has also developed non-nuclear precision weapons that can be used to target adversaries' nuclear command and control and delivery systems, which further heightens the possibility of miscalculation, forcing the other side to respond with nuclear escalation. Space domination is another area where the United States has invested significant resources. It has developed capability to interdict adversaries' space-based surveillance platforms. Such offensive capabilities can potentially increase the dangers of nuclear entanglement, which is not specific to great powers competition only, but is also relevant to our region as India operationalizes its anti-satellite capability. India is also in the process of developing hypersonic weapons that can be used for non-nuclear counter-force precision strikes. It is also developing missile defense shield, which includes the acquisition of S-400 anti-missile system from Russia. These capabilities, once operationalized, does not provide a foolproof protection against adversaries' retaliatory strike capability, but it may incentivize the Indian decision makers to contemplate a preemptive first strike. India could also use this capability as a coercive strategy and prevent Pakistan from early deployment of its short-range missiles in response to India's evolving doctrine of fighting a limited war under a nuclear overhang. After the conclusion of war foundational agreements with the United States, India's spatial orientation has received a significant boost. The Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, commonly known as BICA, that the two sides have signed provides India access to the US space-based assets. recently concluded space situational agreement is likely to further enhance India's potential to monitor Pakistan's strategic assets during crisis and improve India's situational awareness and targeting strategy. To conclude, technology is evolving at a very fast pace, making it difficult for technologically dependent countries like Pakistan to remain abreast with the new developments and explore their utility for the military purposes. Due to relatively weak research and development infrastructure and disconnect between various national stakeholders, the existing developments in emerging and disruptive technologies are not being optimally utilized for the national development needs and for military purposes. Pakistan faces serious internal and external challenges that are likely to be compounded with the introduction of destabilizing technologies and military doctrines by our adversaries. Our conventional and nuclear deterrence remains credible as of now. However, to meet the future challenges, Pakistan may have to review its full spectrum deterrence posture that should be able to deal with all possible threats from land, air, sea or space. To meet such an ambitious deterrence posture, Pakistan would need significant resources, which may be difficult to spare in the near future, but the objective can be achieved by bringing synergy in the existing efforts and prioritizing the national needs. There is also a requirement to increase collaboration between the defense and academia. The US Department of Defense has an ongoing program which is called SMART, that stands for Science, Mathematics and Research for Transformation Program. The DoD funds number of undergraduate and graduate students who have the aptitude to become digital and keyboard warriors. These are then offered jobs in relevant labs to work on emerging and disruptive technologies. If we are planning to prepare for the future warfare, we may consider similar initiatives and make long-term investment in building human resource who would be specialists in their fields and in a better position to exploit the potential of emerging and disruptive technologies for socio-economic development as well as for the military means. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adil.